Hey, good morning. If you're joining live just now, we're starting our live stream of this work in progress on this portrait. So thanks for joining. Appreciate you being here today. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to look back at some of the proportions and the alignment of some of the features and make corrections where I need to make corrections. So we're just starting to sort of develop and work out some of the issues with the line drawing. And that's one of the nice things about, let me open up the chat here in case you've got any questions or comments. I'll be able to hear those transcribed for me. All right, there we go. Okay. So again, we're over on Facebook Live, and we're on YouTube live stream as well. So you can go to either one of those platforms. If you're on one and you're not liking the experience, or you decide that you'd rather switch over to the other one, you're welcome to do that. All right. So I just need to... It really helps me to look at some of the smaller images on the screen and just look at sort of the thumbnail image of what's going on. That helps quite a bit. Okay. And we're on sanded paper. We're using the LuxArchival Sanded Paper, which makes it nice to be able to work out line drawing and layout issues. If we were doing this on a traditional cotton paper, then we would not be able to do this the way that we're executing on it, because we'd have to be pretty accurate pretty early on in the drawing process. So I think I started looking at this development down here quite a bit, and oh, hey Harry, thanks for joining over on YouTube Live. Got a lot of snow, huh? It finally stopped snowing here. It was snowing, but it really wasn't sticking all that much. It was just snowing a lot. Now I do have some issues that I need to address with some of the features, like the nose, I think, if I'm looking at it correctly. So I'll go ahead and do that here in a moment, but I want to extend this part of the face out just a little bit more over here. I started looking at that this morning. It's funny how if you don't look at your drawing for about a week, certain things will jump out at you. Okay. If I can get that little indication there of where the chin begins, then it kind of helps with some of the dimensions of that feature. And up here, this face actually needs to be wider, but that nose, I started looking at it, and the nose needs to come down a little bit and over this way just a little bit. I want to kind of erase that right there. Yeah, I started thinking it was the mouth, but it was, I think, actually more of the nose that needed to change. That's in there somewhere. And if I can look at that thumbnail image on the screen, that really does help quite a bit. So if you've not ever tried that before, I would encourage you to do that. Just look at that thumbnail image. Oh, thank you. Mad Moments Go, I guess, is your name over there on YouTube. Thank you so much. All right. Need to push this out, it looks like, over here. So Pat over in the Isle of Man, she says that it's very stormy but no snow. Interesting. If it's wintertime, I would rather have the snow, really, I think. Not always, but it's like if it's going to be winter, then go ahead and let it snow. Central New York. Okay, yeah, I can believe you're probably having snow. Diane's over on YouTube Live as well. Oh, excuse me, sneeze. Okay, let me see here. Let me scoot that nose down just a little bit. That looks a little bit better, and I think it needed to go over this way just a little. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Still, that thumbnail image really helps so much. Pat Kelly over on YouTube Live saying that she's having trouble finding the paper. So are you not able to order it online? If you could order it online, you might be better off doing it that way. Not sure how much it would be, though, to do that, but that maybe that's a barrier as well. I'm not sure how much that would be over there. Okay. Now see, this comes back up this way. There's a shadow right there. Shadow right here. And let's see here. And this comes down here. A little bit better. All right. Now I can see a little more clearly. Oh, gotcha. So maybe with waiting just a little bit, the brush and pencil products will start shipping there. Okay, so that is really lined up directly with that side of the nostril. Okay. Actually, let's do this. And that angle is more like that. Okay. And down here. This jets out quite a bit. That comes really way out there. we go. That's a little better. That appears to be nearly on the outside of the iris. If I'm lining that up straight. Yeah, well, it's way over, actually next to the corner of the eye, the outer corner. Okay, somewhere right in there. There we go. Hey, Carolyn, how are you? And I see Carol is out here as well on YouTube Live. How are you all? Okay, let me push this down just a little bit. That's a little exaggerated, which is fine for the moment. And then this pushes out just a little bit. Okay. I think really does help me looking at the small thumbnail image online as opposed to looking at my drawing. I think my earlobe is really down this way, and then same way with the other earlobe. Okay, let me see. Yeah. If I'm looking at this correctly, I think this needs to come down here and then up. And this is above the eye. Okay. Pardon me. Okay. And this comes down just a little bit more, I think. Right here. Over like that. I think I'm fighting some kind of, trying to get some kind of cold, I think. Pardon me. Okay, now let me take a look at that again. So this comes down. It's tapered just a little more. I'm looking at these angles. Excuse me. Trying to force myself not to look at the features as much as I'm looking at angles. Now, the context obviously is the angle of the feature. It's the feature itself, really. But if I hyperfocus on like an overall feature, then what could happen is I will miss the alignment of the feature. So I need to really focus on the overall angle instead. Okay, this cuts in just a little bit quicker right here. Okay. It always does help to check yourself with a smaller image. Now I could look at oh, excuse me. I could look at my LCD on my camera and try to check it that way. But it actually is better to look over at my display of the live stream and do the comparison, the side by side, just looking back and forth. So I'm looking at it here, but if I look at it over there, it shows me a little bit more. I can see it even smaller than looking at it right in front of me. Now, if I was doing this on Stonehenge or some other less forgiving paper, we wouldn't be able to do this at all. We would have to get a very accurate line drawing on a separate sheet of paper and then transfer it over. Okay. The philtrum, especially when someone is smiling, and especially on a young child, we're not going to see as much with the philtrum. It's not as pronounced, and that's that little divot right there above the upper lip. The older someone gets, the more we're going to be able to identify it and see it. Pardon me. But it's a good landmark to look for. Okay. Maybe a little detail up here in the ear. And this ear really does come down pretty far. And I think I did tilt the head a little bit more than the reference, so I went ahead and tilted my reference a little bit more. Oh, yes. So Carol's asking if the sketch lines will disappear. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I would not be happy with a whole bunch of sketch lines. Actually, if you look at this, look at that philtrum right there. As I blow some compressed air here with this, or really not compressed air, but this forced air out of this air rocket, it just kind of took it away, for the most part. So yeah, on future layers, I'm going to get rid of a lot of these lines. I don't want a lot of lines dictating things to me later on. I want to, depending on how you look at it. I mean, this is. I don't want lines in the finished product. I'll put it that way. This process, though, of kind of feeling the portrait out is a very long process. It's fun to do, but it's also something that it takes a while to work with it and to just keep looking at it and seeing where you are with it, and going back to the reference and gauging all the distances and making sure it's looking accurate. I don't ever really feel like I'm done drawing, especially when I'm doing a layout process that is this inexact. So it's a lot of just feeling it out. It's a lot of fun, though. But it also is... It's also one of those things where you've got to just keep looking at it, keep measuring, keep paying attention to distances and that kind of thing. Oh, yeah. So Carol says it reminds her of oil paintings that she did at school. I can imagine. Yeah, so especially, this kind of, you could call it more like a grisaille method, where it's... it's just a muted down version. Okay. Let's see here. I've got a small cough right now. It's not dust from the drawing itself. Some people wonder about that and ask if there's dust involved. There is a little bit, but not a lot, not much. Not near as much as if you were working with pastels. If you're working with pastels, you would have a lot more dust happening. Okay. I want to take a look at this again, make sure that these angles are looking a little more accurate. And pretty good, pretty good. Not bad. As we get some of the shadows in, especially in the forehead, it will start making a little more sense. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm kind of happy with some of that. Yeah. Until I look at it next week and I start looking again, I'm like, oh, okay, got to change this. Invariably, that seems to be what happens. Okay. Push this back up just a little bit. All right. I can start to get rid of some of these. I can start to get rid of some of these lines, I think, and we should be fine doing that. So I'll grab the brush to do that. Just a dry brush. There's nothing on it. I can push around some of this, push it into the grit of the paper. Okay. brow ridge is sticking out up there a little bit because of the lighting situation. Let's see. Okay, so my focus is going to be on the eyes again, and that's where I started up, and I'm really gauging everything else in the portrait from the standpoint of the features of the eyes, and are those eyes, looking accurate or not. That's my primary focus. That's what I want to make sure that everything else uses the eyes as the barometer, as the way of gauging accuracy. So I know not everybody does that. Even the shape of the face, I'm more concerned about where it is in relationship to the eyes. And so I'm going to look at these intervals between where that zygomatic arch is over here on the side, wherever this zygomatic is, and the cheek, and where the cheek is beginning, and that sort of thing, in relationship to that interval, that distance between the outer corner of the eye, then that's going to dictate to me what to do in that area. Okay. Sharpen that pencil a little bit. On a sanded surface, your pencil goes dull much quicker. And not that you need a sharp pencil. That's one of the advantages of working on a non-absorbent surface like this. But you do sometimes want some smaller lines and smaller details. And when that happens, then you've got to have a little bit of a point that you can work with. Okay. At some point, I am going to have to put the glasses on. The subject I'm talking about. And I just don't need to do that right away. Okay. Now, I could use white in some of these areas and start establishing some of the brighter highlights if I wanted to. But it's a little early on to be doing that. It makes things look better quicker when you start establishing the darkest and the lightest values early. And it makes us feel better. We like what we're seeing. It gives us some encouragement to keep going, that kind of thing. But it also can skew our judgment a little bit and start making us trust in an angle that we've not yet been able to verify through just the drawing process of feeling out of everything. And so I don't really want to do that right now. So I'm just going to use this ivory for a little while. Okay. Now I want to look at it again and sort of judge the accuracy a little bit. Make sure things are looking reasonably accurate. This is all in shadow under here. And then some of these subtle mid-range values are a little more noticeable. Okay. Okay, so look at that one more time. And I think I'm okay with the way it's looking right now. I might get a little more value up here. But then I can start on some pretty dark values. Just going a little bit closer to the mid-range area. And then I can start working in both directions. The light values and the dark values. And that's when it gets pretty exciting to me. Okay. All right. So, let's see. And remember the old squint your eyes trick. That really does work. In case you're wondering about a certain proportion, squinting your eyes does help. All right. Okay, so now I get to decide which dark value to go with. And I think it would be probably most logical to stay more focused on the eyes. And so I'm going to go back up there to the eyes Probably use Caput Mortem. Looks like a good one. And even though I've got an angle up here already, I still want to think about this angle. And I want to think about whether or not it's accurate. If it isn't, then I can start redrawing it. It's kind of a sharp angle right here on this eye. A little bit sharper than it is on the left. And then it comes down rather abruptly, it looks like to me. And we're drawing very brown eyes. These are brown eyes. That's what we're drawing. Okay. So we can use green and orange and a variety of colors, and some purple, to get some accuracy in the eyes. I am going to suggest a little bit of darker values right in here. I'm going to use this Bark Inktense pencil. So if I needed to go in the other direction now, now that I use something as dark as the Inktense pencil, then what I could do is I could spray the drawing to be able to layer more on top if I needed to. Okay, now I can use some gray pencils in here for the sclera, the so-called white of the eye. And just start getting some of those more accurate values in there, even though it looks really dark right now. Those are pretty accurate. Okay. I can go back and forth as well between this dark value and this lighter value with grays. There we go. Okay. Now, I'm going to sharpen up my, what is this one? Van Dyke Brown. Use that as maybe a base layer here. And I'm thinking about the values still. I don't want to get too far away from the focus on the values. Same way over here. Make sure that I'm thinking about a darker value, much darker value on top than towards the bottom when I'm looking at the irises. There we go. All right. Switching back over to my poop mortem. Actually, I need to sharpen it. And I want to look at that top crease and the upper eyelid. There we go. Okay. This upper area here, that skin just comes down right there next to the tear duct. And you notice on a child, there is just not much of by way of a tear duct. You're not going to be able to see a whole lot of that, at least at this zoom level and from this angle. Okay. It's a little bit better. This comes down a little bit more, though, right in here. And that tapers back up just a little bit. Right in there. Okay. Same way over here. There we go. Okay. All right. A little exaggerated right now, but not a whole lot. Just a little bit, which I'm fine with. That's fine. Just like with the hair, often I'll exaggerate angles in the hair early on because later on I can change that. So, same way with the eyes. Some of the angles, it's fine to exaggerate early on in the drawing process, because you know you can go back in there later on and change that back to something a little more accurate when you do. All right. Take a look over here. Looks a little bit better. Okay. So now I think I will start adding a little more color. I'm not going to put the eyelashes in right now. That's just not something that is needed at this point. Unless you consider a dark pencil eyelashes, you know. Yeah, so Carolyn's asking, is it possible to do that because of the type of paper? You're talking about just having all these layers of different colors, I'm guessing, or not putting the eyelashes in. Yeah, there's so many things so many advantages to using a sanded paper and a surface that is non-absorbing, because it's just so forgiving. So forgiving. I can just keep layering. And if I run out of tooth on the paper, then I can spray it with a workable fixative. Once I spray it, then I've got a new surface to work on. Okay. So, I'm okay with the eyes at the moment, and I think to breathe just a little more life in the portrait, I think what I'll do is I will start adding more of a mid-tone flesh color. So I want a little bit of pink with yellow in it, right? That's what we want. And so I grabbed Venetian red. So this one looks pretty good. I'm going to just test right here just a little bit. It might be a little bit dark for what I want. And let me look at this one. This one looks a little bit better, and it's called a medium flesh. And let me test over here. I think that's a little bit better. Okay. So start adding just a little bit of this, and it may start making everything look a little odd at first. That's okay. We just have to remember what our vision is and what everything will look like towards the end of the drawing process. And things are not going to look the way we want them at the beginning. But if we remember the way, well, I guess it isn't remembering, but if we stay focused on the end result and the way that we want it to look by the time we're done, then everything else will, it'll be fine. We'll just have to stay focused on the end result. Okay, put a little more over here. I've got more gray over here in the shadow. More of the shadow on the left side of the face, her right side. And that's because there's going to be less light over there, less direct light, and more ambient light that's affecting the colors. So as long as I remember that, and I can put in like more neutral colors, more muted purples and things like that, getting closer to the complement of whatever the local color is. If I think like that over there, then I should be fine. So I had somebody email me after last week's live stream and ask me if there's, just one way to lay out a drawing on sanded paper with the medium of colored pencil. And my reply is that no, there isn't. There's not just one way. Obviously, there can be many ways of approaching that, and I'm showing you one way of doing it. There are many ways, and I don't do it the same way each time either, and that may be really disconcerting to some, but I guess there's a lot of reasons for that. But I like to sort of challenge myself and to try different methods and different approaches. I don't like just getting married to one formulaic process, because sometimes, depending on what you're drawing, something may not work for a particular composition that worked for the last one, so varying it and not just being married to one process, I think is a good thing. I'm not criticizing someone who is just using one technique or several techniques and not varying that at all. That's fine too, but there's something to be said about just having a variety of options as an artist and just thinking, okay, I know I can do it this way or maybe this other way, and I'm going to use whichever technique I think fits this composition the best this time. And I don't know, I just think that there's a lot of flexibility in having that kind of approach as opposed to always doing it the same way. And the risk, I think, sometimes is that if you only do something one way, then you can just start getting way too formulaic in what you're producing. And if you look at portraits where someone always renders the same way every time, then you'll also start looking at features, and it looks like, well, they got to the nose, so they drew the same nose they draw every time, you know, that kind of thing. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I tailor it each time. So, you know, and I'm sure you're probably the same way in your drawings as well. So Carol says, let's see, what are you saying, Carol? That corner of her mouth really appears to be further back from the surface of the paper. Wow, I hope that makes sense. The corner of the mouth appears to be further back from the surface of the paper. Oh, well, good, I guess. So there's a little bit of dimension. Good. I guess that's good. That's what I was hoping for, I presume. You're talking about the one on the left, right? Her right side, I'm guessing. Okay. I think that's what you're meaning, right, Carol? So at this point, you know, it's just everything is pretty muted with regard to a lot of values that we've laid down. Everything is nearly like this sepia kind of look, until I put this pink in here, right? So now that I've got a little bit of pink in here, now I can start, you know, adding a little more dimension and curve into things a little bit more. Yeah. Well, thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. So, yeah, so it's only because of the values, right, that we've got in here right now. And like I said earlier, though, some of these values will not be accurate. And we won't know that until a little later on. We start figuring it out, and we're like, it's totally wrong. And then we'll have to switch some things, which is fine. Now, some of the things that I like to do on portraits that I don't see in the reference, but I still like to do it, and that is, I like to create a more three-dimensional look and curve on the sides of the face. Now, I don't always do it. I mean, it doesn't always make sense, and I haven't even decided yet on this one if I will. But early on in this process, for right now, I'm creating a little more value over on this corner, this side of the face. But as we head in for the landing, you know, hours and hours from now, then we may get rid of the darker values surrounding the border of the face, just because the light source may be more compelling to keep it the way it is. You know, I think I already talked about the fact that I don't want to keep some of these strange-looking highlights right here where the light is hitting certain spots. But there's other spots where I will keep some of that. As we get some of this, more of this flesh tone in here, then we'll be able to determine whether some of the line drawing is accurate as it needs to be, and it may not be in certain areas, which is fine. Okay, let's come over here. Now see, I can see that already, that needs to be tapered a little more slowly right there. There we go. And I think you can see this on the reference. Maybe I can zoom in here a little bit. My recording just stopped on my camera. I'm not sure why that is. Okay. So I think you can see, though, on the nose where there's a little more yellow right in here. And I do want to capture some of that as well. So let's see here. Not right now, but later on we'll want to capture that. Oh man, some of these shadows and some of these variations in the in these mid-tone areas are just going to be fun. They're going to be great, I think. Okay. There we go. Move some of those in up here. All right. Oh, it's from the printer. Carolyn's asking if the photo reference is from the printer or a photo. Yeah, I just I took I don't remember, about 100 references of my subject, and then found a few that I thought would make a good reference for drawing, and then I printed this one out. I finally decided on this one. Oh yeah. Mine does too, Carolyn. There's certain things I can do to work on the color a little bit sometimes, but and I did do some editing on this one too, because I'm compensating for the printer distorting the color. But you're exactly right. Yeah, mine does that too. It distorts the color. And so as long as you know that, and what mine does is, no, this is not my, so Carolyn's asking if this is my daughter. No, my daughters are much older now. I've got one in high school. She's a sophomore in high school. And then I've got one freshman in college. So that's it. I've got 2 girls. No, this is the model is actually from friends of ours, and it was taken. When did I take this? Last summer, I believe. This past summer. I believe that's when it was. Yeah. Okay. I do have a lot of references of my daughters when they were younger. It helps to have family members that are willing to pose for you, right? I've always... It's just hard sometimes to find people, willing subjects for references. And this is the reason why I've hired actors, or models, I guess I should call them. Some are professional, they've done it before, and that's always best if you can find a model who has posed before. And then I've had other models who I have just commandeered and asked them if they would do that. The problem with getting someone who's not a model, and it's great, and I love it, and I'm not complaining, and you should try to do that if you're portrait artist. Oh, I know. Yeah, Carolyn's talking about how this bristle brush just blends everything together, and it really does. You know, I don't have any solvent or water or anything on this, and it works really well. But what I was saying is that, you know, working with someone who's not used to modeling is fine, but you kind of have to prime them and prep them and talk to them about what you're looking for a little bit more so than you do those that have done it before. The biggest difference I've found is that someone who's not used to it, they want to talk to you the whole time. And so their mouth is constantly in flux and moving around, or their head is too. And so you have to remind them, I actually need you to not talk and to keep your head still. And it works so much better, you know, whenever they kind of understand, you know, what the whole point is about what they're doing and what you're after, that kind of thing. You know, I don't say it like that, so. Oh, thanks for joining us. So Heidi is saying over there on YouTube that she must be the only person that doesn't like this paper. That's so funny. No, I'm sure you're not the only person. And sanded paper is it's a different animal than other papers. So, and it if you're used to like a cotton paper or something like that, then it is something to get used to. I mean, it is different than traditional cotton papers. So, but anyway, so Harry is asking, can you lift color off the paper after using the brush? Oh yeah, you can. I mean, if I wanted to go in here and lift it, you know, I could do that. I have to reposition this, but I think you can see how I can get that off, you know. Yeah, you're right about that, Heidi. Lady Marigold over there on Facebook Live, she's talking about the dust. If you compare this to pastel matte, yeah, you're not going to get as much dust on pastel matte as you are on a sanded paper. That's very true. But I find I get less dust on this paper than I do on other sanded papers. Yeah, see, I can lift this if I need to. But you know what, Harry? To answer your question more completely, here's the thing that's cool about a sanded paper, though. I don't need to lift on this paper. And so what I mean by that is if I make a mistake, which I make a lot of mistakes, if I've done that, then what I can do is I can go over the area with a different color of pencil. So if I've gone too dark in an area and I don't like that and I need it to be brighter, then I can use a brighter pencil and go over that area. That's the cool thing about it. Now, if we were wanting to just start capturing some of the highlights, and I'm going to be judicious and careful about this, but we could do that right now. You know, I could start doing a little bit of that right now. And it just helps everything to sort of jump off the page a little bit. I don't like to do it this early on. But anyway. Because I'm not sure where those highlights are going to go, you know. Yeah, I really believe that most colored pencils are just about the same in opacity. Some are softer than others, and so they give the illusion that they're more opaque. And so that's the reason why, you know, sometimes I'll use the Chinese white. The problem is it is a very soft pencil, so it kind of rests on top. Now, it does work really well on sanded paper. I think you get more out of the Derwent Drawing pencils on a sanded paper than you would on a cotton paper. But if you spray it then after you put that on, then it does appear to be more opaque. But I could go over the top of that. Maybe if I zoom in here, you can see this a little bit better as well. But if I go over the top of that now, with, it's nearly outside of the frame. Let me make sure you can see it. If I go over the top of this with my ivory pencil, I don't know if you can see that very well, but what will happen is it will start taking off that white Derwent Drawing pencil. And so kind of defeats the purpose a little bit to put a whole lot of the Derwent Drawing pencil on there, because I'm taking it back off whenever I'm going on top of it. Now, if I were using a Pablo pencil or Polychromos, it does that as well. Something very, very hard lead, then I'm going to start taking off some of the pencil that I've already put down. You know, so it's just something to be aware of. I still like the Derwent Drawing pencils a lot. I love them, and I think they're a great pencil. And they don't get enough fame and glory. I don't know why, but you know, there's not as many of them, but they're great pencils. Okay. So now, if we wanted to, we could work on more of these dark values in here. Like I could define this corner of the mouth, these corners over here, just a little bit more than what we have already. Yeah, so Carol's saying my pressure on the pencil appears to be very light. It's about medium to light pressure, depending on what I'm putting on here right now. It doesn't take a whole lot of pressure on a sanded paper, right? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. Telling me I was out of the shot. There we go. I forgot I zoomed in that much. So, here we go. Can I zoom out again? Oh, yeah, okay. I did. Now I'm going to need some blue in there as well to really add some dimension and some curve in here. And I don't want to lose that middle line, and if I'm not careful, I will. Now, see, a lot of times I'll draw that line straight down, the vertical line, the middle of the face, but I didn't do it this time. But it's in my head, and I'm thinking about it. as I'm progressing through the piece. I lost some of my construction lines around certain features. I want to make sure that I grab some of those back in here. That top of the lip is so subtle. The change in the skin type is such a subtle thing that I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I don't want to really put a real definite line up there. I need a line right now, though, a little bit of a line right now, so that I know where it is. But as I progress through the piece, I'm going to change that and make it blend right in with the skin pretty much. There's not a definite line typically with the lips. Now, there are exceptions to that. On this bottom lip, there is a definite line. But on that top lip, I think you can clearly see that there's not so much of a definite line. So Heidi, I'm just curious if you want to volunteer. What is it that you don't like about the LuxArchival paper? I'm just curious about that. I do like the paper, but if you want to say why you don't like it, I'm just curious what you don't like about it. And is it this paper in particular, or just all sanded papers? I can look at some of this detail in the mouth. But I don't want to put in too much detail right now. There we go. Okay. That bottom lip needs to go down just a little bit further, I think. Top lip might need to go up just a little bit more, though. So I'm not sure yet. Either way, it should be fine. Oh, I gotcha. So, Lady Marigold, you're saying then, probably what you're saying is there's too much grain on sanded paper for you, is what I'm guessing. There's just too much grit, and yeah, I can understand that, especially if you like pastel matte or you like other papers already. I can understand the hesitation to a sanded paper. Most of the time I use Inktense pencils dry. Carol's asking about that. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not somebody who thinks that just because a manufacturer says it's a water-soluble pencil that I have to use water with it. I mean, they also talk about the fact that you can use water-soluble pencils dry. And what I love about dry water-soluble pencils is those water-soluble waxes are so soft that they're just velvety whenever you apply them. Now, I'm not doing this particular drawing with, the entire piece with an underpainting of an Inktense pencil, but I like to do that. And I will often use, like the Inktense bark pencil. Now I'm going to use the shorter bristled brush a little bit and blend that in just a little bit right in here. And some of that darker area established. There we go. Okay, I want to look at that just for a moment. All right, that is... Yeah. Yeah, so Lady Marigold, or Heidi, she's talking about using the soft tools for pastels, using those large soft sponges, and I'm guessing you're talking about using those on LuxArchival or any kind of sanded paper. Yeah, that is a fact. I mean, that happens where you're using a soft, some of those soft tools, and like I've got one right here. I mean, if I start doing that early on in this process, I'm going to tear that thing up. I don't recommend that. I know some artists use them pretty early on. Now, after I've got some pigment down in some areas, they're fine. But yeah, that's the risk, is that you just tear them up, is what you're doing. And I like to use a brush early on, primarily for that reason. Later on, I will use soft tools, but I don't want to do that too early. Later on I'll do it because there's enough pigment down and I'm not going to tear everything up. But yeah, that's a good point, actually. Now you can use them very delicately. You're even using pan pastels on it as well. I see what you're saying. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you find out what you do like, then that's always a great thing, to figure out what papers, what pencils, and what medium, all those things. Figure out what you do like, and then go with that. Create work that you love, because that's what it's really all about. You're working with materials you like. No, so Harry's asking, would you use a stiff brush in a similar way on non-sanded paper? No, I wouldn't do that. I would on pastel matte. I would use it pretty similar on pastel matte, but not on a cotton paper. It would tear it up, actually. So, good question, though. I could use some softer brushes, though. And if you were real delicate, I suppose you could do that, But it's kind of a risk, though, too, that just mess that up. I don't have a good sharp point on that pencil. I push that nostril down further than I wanted. Right up here, I think. Okay. All right. So I think I'm pleased with the progress so far on where we are with things. Now, of course, I'll have to do my comparison again and take a look and see what needs to change, because I'm sure there will be things. That always happens, and that's fine. You know, I'm okay with that. But anyway. So thanks for joining, though, guys. I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun, and hopefully as we progress, we'll get a little faster on certain things. That's one of the other benefits to working on a non-absorbent surface like sanded paper is it's just so quick. You can just render things so quickly. And you can be intuitive about, you know, how you work. Okay. All right. So Heidi is she's on a roll here. Thanks, Heidi. Yeah, no, I appreciate the feedback there on what you don't like about sanded paper and your differences in pastels and colored pencil. That's a good point, and you know, I think they're very complementary. So, but it's some people just don't enjoy the same process and the same materials, and it's fine. Yeah. Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate that. Thank you. No, it's fine. I mean, not everyone has to like the same method or the same process. So, whatever works for you, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do more of, right? So, cool. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you being out here today, and we're gonna go ahead and stop the live stream, and I'll see you next week on this project, and we'll start adding even more detail. So someone's asking about, Carol's asking if I'm going to add her glasses later. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that, actually. That after I started looking at it, it was like, I don't know that really adds a whole lot to the drawing. So I don't know yet. Good question, but I'm not sure. So, all right. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.